Joel 2:28 says that in the last days I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And also on my men servants and on my maid servants I will pour out my spirit in those days. There is this picture of God's Spirit being so overwhelming that all of the institutions and restrictions and boundaries and doctrines and dogmas that we've created are just obliterated. And I believe that if that's where we're going, if that's the end state, then we have a responsibility to work with the Spirit of God and to move in that direction. I believe that we are seeing a turning point in the history of humanity. The Spirit of God is saying to women that we can sit and watch this go by, or we can be front and center in the move of the Spirit. 2031 came from Proverbs, which is the 20th book of Scripture, and the 31st chapter, which speaks directly to women. It's interesting to study church history and to listen to how seminarians and theologians have grown and shaped the faith however they needed to keep the same outcome regarding women. It doesn't matter where you look, whether it's early orthodoxy with the doctrine that women are the seed of sin, or today's version where women are finally considered spiritually equal. They're just constricted to a very specific role. We keep massaging the underlying doctrine so that we can keep the desired outcome. All of it is designed to keep women in a particular place, living a spiritual life that is dependent, so that women are constantly looking over their shoulders, not for leading from the Spirit of God, but for someone else's blessing. If we truly believe, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, then we should be actively working towards that state here. We don't ignore slavery or human trafficking just because we're in a fallen state, or shrug our shoulders and just say, oh well. Absolutely not. Women are called to serve and to fulfill the biological commitments associated with their choices, but we are also called to lead and to proclaim publicly the good news of Jesus Christ, extending our hands to the poor and reaching out to the needy. Women need a standard that is not culturally driven, and I believe for women that means seriously applying the standard of Proverbs 31 within the context of Jesus' instructions in Matthew 25. So the second part of the mission of Project 2031 is to see every woman who calls herself a woman of God fully employed in the kingdom of God, using every one of her talents as she is led by the Spirit of God. We have an entire group of people whose mission in life it has become to keep women in a post-fall, pre-atonement state, where women can be considered spiritually equal, but that spiritual equality produces absolutely no net change. Women are still outside in the court of the women. We've built a version of the church that is structured around making sure men and their offspring are cared for, even when it means that women often sacrifice the call of God for their lives. Ironically, we ignore most of what the Proverbs 31 woman actually did, so that we're in this position in which we are actually encouraging and insisting that women live an unscriptural life. So many of us convince ourselves that if we just get the home part right, it'll make up for everything else. And women who will stand up and discuss these issues are, of course, depicted as angry or bitter or misguided. It's like a political campaign, very deliberate mischaracterizations designed to discredit the messenger and consequently the message. But if I could tell you how many women I've spoken with, women who knew that God had called them to something, but have ignored the call of God on their lives because they didn't want to rock the boat, or because they've been taught to second guess their calling and their ability to hear from God. Our biological commitments are part of a whole, but each of us has a Great Commission responsibility. Each of us has a kingdom responsibility, and there's only one person to whom we give account for our lives.